All right. I'll go ahead and call us into order. Thank you guys so much for being here and taking time to be with us today. This is our first meeting back where we actually get to see some people here. So I'm so thankful that you guys are here. It has been quite a challenge, especially early on when we were looking at little Brady Bunch squares. So that wasn't nearly as fun, but I do appreciate y'all being here. And I'd like to ask Councilman Hendricks if he'll open our meeting up with the pledge and invocation.
Let's stand, y'all. Pray, Lord, that you'll be with us tonight. Pray, Lord, that you'll guide us in our decision-making for the county. Pray that you'll be with our law enforcement, our military, those that are hurting because of injustice. Pray, Lord, that you'll help us to use our wisdom to lead us to a peaceful solution. Pray that we will have peace throughout our country. I pray that you'll be with our leaders, nationally and locally. Help give us the wisdom to do the things that you want us to do to carry out your will. Pray, Lord, you keep us safe. If all this be thy will, in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilman Hendricks. You guys got your packet in front of you. We'll move on to our first item, which is public forum. This is an opportunity for feedback to council on issues that the public deems important. Madam Clerk, will you please call our first speaker? All right, thank you. And then we'll move on to item number 3, which is the approval of minutes. I ask for a motion approving the minutes of May 4th, 2020 council meeting and the May 14th, 2020 budget work session. You guys should have gotten a copy of those minutes. As a motion is a second required. Motion by Councilman Hendricks.
Second.
Second by Councilman Feimster.
Mr. Chairman, I'll recuse myself from this council meeting.
You were not here, but you know
That's
what?
right.
We're glad you're here today. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. Item number 4, our administrator's report. I'll turn it over to Mr. Roper at this time.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have a few items. I may go through some of these pretty quickly, but I'd like to update you on a few things that you might not be fully briefed on. One is COVID-19, to bring you up to date on that within Pickens County. As many of you will know, today was the first day of phase 3 of our Kickstart program. So we've kick-started in Pickens County, and we have been, our buildings mostly are completely open to the public. This main administration building has been open here today, and then with a few exceptions, we're back to the new normal operation. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But at first, just to give you some statistics that we're up to date, 69 cases reported in Pickens County in the last 14 days. That number has come up recently in the last few days. And we think and trust that this is because there's so much more prevalence of testing right now. So we don't see anything that's too concerning there, other than certainly we hope the best for those 69 active cases. There have been 3 deaths in Pickens County due to COVID-19, a total of 164 cases since we had our first positive on March the 20th. Again, we don't see any huge run-up in numbers that would not be explained by the widespread availability now of more testing. 297 new cases in South Carolina today for a total of 12,148 in all 46 counties. As you may have seen, the cases are most focused or most concentrated in Pickens County. The closer you get to Greenville, the more the case concentration we have is, which we think is probably something that's logical, easy to explain because of population densities over there. So 29640, 29642 are the zip codes that have the highest numbers in Pickens County. As you head west, you have fewer cases generally when you get out there. This is a chart just showing the number of positives. You can see the spike in the last few days, but there have been significantly more test run in the last few days, including a significantly larger number of negatives. So we think this is probably just reflecting the amount that was already out there available, spread in the community anyway, and the testing is starting to cover it. But we're going to keep a close eye on this data, and if at some point I need to come back to you all for additional authorizations, et cetera, or if we need to look at going back to an earlier phase in our opening, we'll keep you apprised of that. But right now, we're excited to have the public back. Like the chairman said, we've missed that. Many of the people, including myself, got involved in public service because we enjoy feeling useful to the public. And to not be able to see them face to face, to walk them to where their answer could be, to give them assistance, helping them the way the government can, has been a frustrating thing for us over the last 10 weeks. So we're glad to be back. Moving forward from that, this will show you the active cases. Obviously, that's a linear progression there with the red cases. The blue is, again, showing you the increased positives from the more widespread testing. So we can move on past that. And I talked about Kickstart. Again, we had a three-phased approach. The idea with that is that if situation changes, we could easily, as a county, be adaptable to go back to an earlier phase. So today was our first phase where we had people coming in the building without any type of restriction. You may have noticed the signage when you came in, the prompts on the floor, the things like that that showed people where to stand. We've tried to be intentional with that. You will notice the way this room is set up, which to me looks terrible, and it bothers mine and Mr. Garino's senses of order and decency, but nevertheless, we feel like it's probably the safest thing to do. I will tell you that the library system actually has a four-phase approach, and they are still not fully open. They still have some people that are using the drive-through, for example, in the Easley branch. The drive-through opened this afternoon. So you'll see the library is taking a slightly more prolonged approach. Moving on from that, unemployment numbers, I thought this was interesting, and I don't know what to read into this, but I wanted you gentlemen to have this data. Obviously, one of the concerns from COVID-19 has been the way that the response to the pandemic has negatively impacted our economy. And we know that it has. We've seen those numbers nationally. We've seen those numbers on the state level. But one thing that we learned just day before yesterday, or I guess this was actually Friday, is that Pickens County's unemployment rate right now in April was 11%. That was up from 2.9% in March when the pandemic started. So you can see that growth. Now, it's hard to describe 11% unemployment and more than tripling of the unemployment number as good news. But let me give you a frame in it that might give you some degree of hope. And that is that we have the lowest rate of unemployment in the 10 upstate counties. The highest rate is one of our neighbors over on the other end of 85 at 18.5%. The South Carolina statewide rate is 12.2%, up from 3.0 in March 2020, and the national rank is 14.4. So I just point that out to perhaps show it as data to show the resilience of our local community and our economy, and the hopefulness that we will be able to bounce back in a strong rate, because we know that we are right now the best number in the upstate. This is off the question of unemployment and on a recreation possibility that's coming up. Through the South Carolina National Heritage Corridor, some of their folks, they're sponsoring an adventure that follows the Foothills Trail, and that adventure is to visit the 7 wonders of South Carolina. You can follow, if you follow SC7 Wonders on social media, on any social media platform, you'll see this. It's through the month of July. They're actually going to have various hikes and visits that start in Oconee County and conclude at the aquarium down in Charleston, right on the landing there. The idea of this expedition, as they're characterizing it, is that you can see all of the 7 wonders of South Carolina during the month of July. Interestingly, 2 of the 7 wonders are located right here in Pickens County. There's only one other county in the state that has more than one, and that's Charleston County. So between us and our friends in Charleston County, we have 4 of the 7 great wonders of the state, and I think we should take some pride in that. We'll be celebrating that when the excursion comes through our community the first week of July, and as a matter of fact, Friday, July the 3rd, there'll be a fireside chat at Table Rock State Park that'll be hosted by Pickens County. All of you gentlemen will be invited to meet the people on the expedition, the people that will have completed just that day a 10-mile hike. that we visited Jocassee Gorges and then hiked up Sassafras Mountain. So you'll see more information on that coming. I just wanted to tell you about it now that they're more public with their information, so that you would know it and keep your calendars free, if possible, on the night before Independence Day, because we're going to be really proud to showcase Pickens County on that state level at that time. I don't know if you've received word yet, but the South Carolina Association of Counties is moving forward with its annual convention. We don't know yet what our participation in that will be from a wider convention standpoint, but I want to talk to you about our entries into the competition, because we finalized as a staff what we're going to enter. You will know that year in and year out we enter on one of the two options. This year there'll be three options for us to enter, but we have determined that we're going to enter the J. Mitchell Graham Memorial Award, which recognizes counties that address community challenges, implement operational improvements, and enhance the citizens' quality of life in a unique way. And we are going to enter this year for hopefully recognition on the state level for what you all gentlemen have spearheaded over the last several years with our animal shelter. If you go back and look at where we were in 2017 with the changes you all as a council made to the animal shelter, to our animal shelter ordinance, which allowed us to start an adoption program. You funded that program. County staff set that up and got that running, and we're now, for many, many, many months, have been adopting more than 90% of the animals that come into that facility. We think it's a very good story, and we want to tell it at a state level, and so we're going to enter it into the Mitchell Graham Award. But we're not going to just enter one this year, gentlemen. We're going to enter all three. We're also going to enter the Barrett-Larimore Regional Cooperation Award, and our entry is going to be what came about as a part of this COVID-19 situation. One of the things we did very early on through the powers that this council gave us in 2017 under our emergency ordinance to form community task forces. We formed those community task forces, and when times that our buildings were closed and we were not allowed to have many parts of county government working, we retasked those workers to serve with United Way, with the Gleaning House Ministry, with helping make porch drops for Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, and for other community organizations like Pickens County Meals on Wheels. We think that might be something that would be new and that would be fresh and would be unprecedented on a state level, so we're going to enter that regional cooperation entry as well. And then we're also going to enter on a third, and I know this is a record because there's never been three categories before, so I know that this is a record since we're entering in the third category, is our COVID-19 response, a special category this year. We're going to enter our three-phase kickstart plan because we know from feedback we've received from neighboring counties and elsewhere in the state that a lot of people emulated what we did with our three-phase kickstart. The branding, the adaptability of it, those sorts of things. So we're going to enter that in the COVID-19 resiliency category. First time I'm sure that Pickens County has had 3 entries in those SCAC categories, but it's my opinion that you lose every fight you don't get involved in. You know, you're never going to win a race you don't enter. And so I think that I'm proud of Pickens County, and I'm looking forward to representing the county along with many of y'all as we enter these competitions coming up later in the summer. And then finally, I would like to issue an apology. I think it's appropriate for me to do this in a public way. I gave you all gentlemen some terrible, terrible information when last we met, and I want to apologize for it. Remember, we talked about the tanks at the Public Service Commission. I argued with you about the tanks at the Public Service Commission. I told you that it was a confusing issue because we had multiple years. We had multiple attempts to paint these tanks, and that it was easy to confuse it. And then I immediately confused the 2 tanks. So I want to give you, my Public Works Director and the Public Service Commission Director were both very upset with me the following morning when they said, you got it exactly backwards. Many of you caught me in that. You were trying to tell me I was getting it backwards and saying, for example, I know that in 2017 we did something. Well, you were right. If you go to the next slide, tank number 1 is the tank that needs to be budgeted to be painted in the upcoming fiscal year. The budgeted amount does not require a rate increase. It was built in over the last several years to prepare for this. It was last painted, this tank was last painted in 2010. Our staff did touch-up work on it in 2015 and 2017. I, however, continued to talk to you about tank number 2. Tank number 2, if you'll roll up a little bit further, we probably will consider tank number 2 to be painted in 2024. It was last painted in 2011. Its outside painting was again done in 2015. We are not requesting funding this budget cycle on tank number 2. So I apologize for that confusion. The tank that we need to paint was addressed by staff internally. We tried to do some things to it in 2017. That's what Mr. Bowers, you were referring to. Mr. Whitehurst, you were referring to a terrible warranty we had if we had to turn around and paint it again in 2017. The reality is that was my error. That's a 2010 paint job that we're looking to readdress. So I just wanted to tell you that since I had gotten kind of into the debate with you on that. I wanted to correct the data once my public works folks had corrected it for me. Gentlemen, I believe that's all I have for the administrator's report unless you have any questions.
Questions? No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rover. Item number 5 is our committee reports. We have no committee report this time. Item number 6 is council correspondence. I do want to note that the committee of the whole will meet on Monday, June the 15th at 6 o'clock in the main conference room of this facility. The next council meeting will be July the 13th, not July the 1st. And we're going to do it at 6 p.m. This is a change to you guys. Immediately followed by the committee of the whole. So we'll have one day in July rather than take the month off as we have done in the past. It's important for us to meet, and we still have an opportunity to get together for the council meeting on some of these ordinance that we're working on, and then that'll be followed by the committee of the whole meeting. Pickens County non-essential offices will be closed on Friday, July the 3rd in observance of the 4th of July holiday. Is there any other correspondence that needs to be announced?
I have something I want to point out, and gentlemen, you have something at your desk, 2 handouts I handed to you, and this is regarding the Cliffs Residence Outreach Program, and there's a reason why I'm pointing this out to you, and I'll go over that in just a moment. They're having a Phantom fundraiser coming up, and it's in your handout there. The deadline for ordering a picnic dinner is June 15th. They have stuff there. And the money goes towards their outreach program. Also on June 19th, they have the Hope Lights on Cleo Chapman Highway outside the main gate. They have that. And pretty neat event they have going on. And the reason why I'm pointing that out, some things that the outreach program does is something a lot of people may not know about. With the Cliffs communities, they do distance learning. They've offered and support purchasing hotspots for families without internet access. They help with Camp IROC. We help with the Y as well. Family assistance for those folks that are going through hard times with COVID-19, gift cards, things like that. Help with the school district with field trips and some supplies for the schools. But one thing that relates to us on the county level is their bookmobile. They have provided 100% of $53,000 for the bookmobile for the library. And it's been years since I think we've had one bookmobile. I remember having it when I was little, growing up here in Pickens, but they're contributing to that, and that is a huge asset to our county and our citizens because education is the greatest tool we have to fight poverty, and they're contributing in that way. And I want to say thanks to the residents up there for what y'all doing for our citizens in Pickens County. So I want to point this out to you guys, and you have handouts to look at later if you'd like further information.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Any other council correspondence?
I'll just mention, I should have done this in the administrative report. VHEC is going to have, I'll say 4 COVID testing sites set up across the county over the next couple of weeks. First one is tomorrow. I believe that Rick has an easement here in Pickens, open to the public, and it's more about just trying to get accurate numbers. I had a long discussion with the director at VHEC about it, and it actually does make sense what they're trying to accomplish, but symptomatic, non-symptomatic, doesn't matter. They want to test as many people they can test.
Cool. And tomorrow?
Starts tomorrow. The first one that I know of is tomorrow at Griffin Ebenezer. I don't know when the other 3 is. I'm sure I can get that information. But just something to share.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you. Item number 7, motion period in new business. So we're now in our motion period in new business. I do have a couple of things that I would like to add to the consent agenda. The first one is the sewer use ordinance that we have. I'd like us to take a look at that. And I'd also like to go ahead and put on the consent agenda our emergency services plan, a much broader discussion. So those are the 2 things that I'd like to make a motion that we add to the consent agenda.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. And
Mr. Chairman, I would like to put on the agenda Clemson Paul Partners and discuss that in an executive session, contractual matter.
contractual.
I'll second this motion.
There's been a motion, a second, to put Paul Partners on to executive for contractual. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we add procurement process be placed on the consent agenda to go to the council.
All right. I'll second that. Is there any discussion on adding procurement to the consent agenda? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. Is there any other new business? All right, cool. That was a lot. Let's go to item number 8. This is consideration of resolution 2020-10 calling on the South Carolina Department of Transportation to address the flooding issue in Quail Haven subdivision. I'll say I had asked that we put this resolution on here, and I've mentioned to a couple of you guys, and hopefully you've had a chance to read through it. The flooding that's been happening at Quail Haven has been just terrible. And Mr. Roper, I'm gonna get you to explain a little bit of this so that I'm not speaking out of turn. But if you can give an explanation rather than going through the whereases.
Yeah, I think maybe there's a map here, and will be a little difficult. I wish I had a laser pointer right here, but you'll see the lagoon down there in the lower right-hand side of your
Yeah.
map. That road down there is Old Easley Bridge Road. Old Easley Bridge Road is a state DOT highway. If you look where the big block of pink is on the left, you'll see that road running across there. The next couple of streets are Odom and Teal Drive. And that's where we've had a lot of the problems. We've seen that there's some media coverage about the problems that we've had. Further down, the orange or salmon color up top is Creighton Creek. So the closer you get to Creighton Creek, the further down the hill you go. And the water is coming through that subdivision. The neighbors have made improvements to their property through the years. Subdivision predates any of our development standards. They've made improvements to their property through the years. It's concentrated and rerouted the water through that neighborhood, and the folks up at the top of that map see some pretty significant problems when there's a heavy rain. They've stayed on us. I've been in their living rooms, talked with them about the problems. I've talked back through the history of this with our roads and bridges folks. We've looked at what we can do to help. There are things that we can do and things that we are doing to keep the sides of the roads clear, storm drains on Teal and on Odom, which are our roads, clear. But ultimately, there is so much water coming down off the state highway that we are only making a little difference. We can look back on GIS maps and see where water used to drain, what would be down on the view you're looking at into Georgia Street. There's a gully, there's a big area where the water used to divert, but now it comes in underneath the highway and goes into Creighton Creek through this subdivision. So we've been trying to get DOT to engage in this, and so thus far have been unsuccessful in even having them discuss this. They they take the position that they don't divert the natural flow of water. The position we take is, well, that's not natural, what's happening.
So did they create the problem?
The problem was created by a variety of factors. Private property owners that built the retaining walls, the swimming pools, flower beds, changed the direction of water inside the subdivision did not help. But if you go to this road, when it's raining, you will see the river that runs down the state highway and then turns left, it goes to the well. I've been out there when it's raining, and you've probably seen some of that on the news channel. It seems to me that the fix, or a huge fix, could be made if state DOT would let that water run what's lower on that map to you, down into George's Creek and not through that subdivision to get to Drayton Creek. There's a gully there ready to take it. But we can't get them to have that conversation. So back here, the last big rain event that we had a lot of media contact. I think one of the news channels went live from the subdivision. They came up here, they interviewed me. We were frustrated because we can document repeated attempts where we've tried to get state DOT to go out there and at least address it with us. Let's at least talk about it, and they won't do it. So the chairman asked us to prepare a resolution for you all, calling on him to take that action.
Have we asked delegation members, when we have the problem, when it's running ankle deep down the road, to come out there and look at it?
Yes, we have, and I appreciate that, Councilman Hudson. I'll tell you that Senator Rice has similar frustrations, and y'all feel free to address those to him. He has been out there with our roads and bridges folks. He's been out there on his own time as well, and looked at it. He's talked to the neighbors. He knows them like I know, and I'll tell you that it's such a continued problem that when I come in the door on a morning where it's raining, my assistant says, I'm thinking about Miss Couch, I'm thinking about Miss Arnold. We know their names, you know, because they'll call us and they won't help, but there's very limited things we can do on private property. We need to address the water at the top of the hill.
But this is coming from a state road,
Yes, sir.
and they are, when you make a state road, you're responsible for the stormwater that comes off of that state road. And they're just basically saying, we're not.
What they're saying is that the water is naturally flowing in that direction, and I would make the contrary argument that it's not natural for it to
Make a left
run
turn.
along that road and turn left. We just need
But
them
just
to
because it's
engage.
naturally flowing that way doesn't mean it's not their responsibility.
Well, and just because it's naturally flowing that way doesn't mean that there's not a better way.
Right, but they just can't say once it goes off the road, it's not our responsibility.
That's right. Well, we completely agree.
So we have no authority here whatsoever.
On our roads, we have authority. But on that road, which we believe, and we spent some budgeted funds that we had available, we could have used for some other projects, but we spent that on an outside third-party hydrology study, and they agreed with us that a large part of the problem could be fixed if we could stop that entire state highway road from going through that neighborhood. So do we have jurisdiction? We have jurisdiction to do what we're doing and what we've done. But to fix the state highway, I'll tell you, Mr. Whitehurst, I was tempted the last time it rained to take on some some authority that I didn't have. But that's not the right thing to do.
Well, my feeling is that the people that are responsible, that we have control over, is our delegation. They are the people that have influence over the SCDOT. They don't care about anybody else or any other thing that goes on. And it's going to be from the governor's office or our delegation. So my thought is this letter or this resolution ought to be directed to our delegation and to the governor's office specifically and said, listen, we got a problem with your department. This is your road. You're dumping water into our neighborhoods. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to recycle that water, that storm water, and put it where it needs to go, not through somebody's yard. But I don't know that a
Actually,
resolution to the
well-
SCDOT is going to do.
No, but I love where you're going with this. I think we vote the resolution and we craft a letter signed by all 6 of us that goes to the governor and goes to our state delegation and says, we need this fixed.
I'll tell you on that point, because we didn't come to y'all, haphazardly or first. The delegation has been working with us some. They're similarly frustrated. I also made contact with our local SCDOT road commissioner. Now, it may surprise you to know that our local SCDOT road commissioner is in Greenwood or Lawrence. Probably couldn't find Quail Haven on a map, but I
I think
didn't.
he's being replaced and there's a new one gonna be, appointed. And I think we're hoping we get it, and he's a resident of Pickens County.
Would love for that to happen. But your point that the delegation has more sway than we do is well made. It's true.
I think the phone calls that you receive ought to be redirected to their house.
Vice Chairman Bauer.
Councilman Whitehouse, or if you want to make a motion to add the governor's office and the delegation to the resolution, is that?
Yeah, I'd like to make
And
a
I'll
motion
second your
to do
motion
that.
We add the governor and the delegation to the
We have a
resolution.
first and second on the resolution.
I'll
Wait,
make the motion,
we
he'll
have the first
second.
and second on the resolution.
No, we don't have a first and a
Oh, I
second on
thought
the
we already
resolution.
had that.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
I'll
for the
second your
resolution.
motion, and I'll
Wait,
motion
wait.
to amend,
Okay,
and you'll
hold on.
second it.
Wow. Y'all are making me do this in my head. All right, a motion to accept the resolution by Vice Chairman Bowers, seconded by Councilman Whitehurst. Is there any discussion on that part?
We got to vote on the amendment.
Oh, gosh,
So
well,
make
you're
a-
right, you're right. You got to do the amendments there. So the amendment by Councilman Whitehurst, seconded by Vice Chairman Bowers. Is there any discussion on the amendment to add the governor? And this is all,
Well, I think
you're discussing your own
I'm
motion?
discussing my own motion.
Okay.
Because it's politics, that I think we need to make a PR move here and go to the news and present, because people respond to what they hear. And the problem is these people aren't being heard.
I love this.
And so what they're doing is they're screaming at us, and we're like, we're trying to do what we can. The delegation's thrown their arms up in the air, but if we can go to the press and start making a big deal out of this thing, maybe somebody will hear something. Because they're not getting a voice, and we at least got a platform we can make a voice from.
So, Mr. Whitehurst, and I don't want to interject myself into the debate you're having here, but I want to, just for the record, say that two different times I've had cameras in my face, and I have said exactly what I said about SCDOT, that they wouldn't engage, that we've tried to reach out to them on multiple levels. They won't even look at our hydrology study, won't even, as they put it, recognize it. And so I think we need to continue being the advocate. The promise I made to Ms. Couch and Ms. Arnold when I've talked with them and when they've contacted county staff is that we'll be a voice for them. And exactly what you're saying is what we need to continue to do.
Maybe by having those residents in a meeting of some sort, that we can make a public statement, go to the governor's office. People, they're doing protests around the country now. It's getting a lot of attention, okay, because people stood up and made a lot of noise. And here's some people that have a real issue with government not doing its job, and they don't have a voice. So anything we can do to help to give them that voice. Because once again, SCDOT is not doing their job, which is not new. Anyway, I'm done venting.
Okay.
You knew you'd
I
get me
need this,
started on that.
that's what I said, this is gonna be, you're gonna enjoy this. All right, any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries. Now on the resolution itself, any other discussion? I did remember. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. Thank you all. And Mr. Roper, if we could, I really would like to echo Councilman Whitehurst's point. I'd like to follow up on this as quickly as possible. This is an opportunity to even maybe get a video done, maybe tap into that emotion, get the news folks involved. Thank you. All right, item number 9. This is a further discussion on our budget before we actually go into our third readings. The first item as part of our budget discussion is Tri-County Technical College. Yes, sir, come on up. And I think we've got Dr. DeHaye's, you've got Dr. DeHaye's information in your packet.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for providing me this opportunity to speak with you this evening and answer any questions you might have. I want to start by giving you a little bit of background or context over this past year to give you an update about what's going on at Tri-County as you make your budget deliberations. One is that Tri-County continues to be an excellent value for the citizens of Pickens County. Just recently, we got some new benchmark numbers from the state. We remain at the highest or number one in student success in the state of South Carolina, technical college system at 71%. No other college in the technical college system is within 20% of us, just to give you an idea of how well our college performs. We also have the highest transfer rate in the state of South Carolina. We're in the top 1% in transfer rate in the United States. Only a handful of colleges, two-year colleges in the United States outperform Tri-County, so that's something for Pickens County to be very proud of. We also have the highest graduation rate of all of the technical colleges in the state of South Carolina. So when we talk about student success, we really mean it for our citizens. With all of that, we deliver great value. We've got the lowest tuition rate in the upstate of South Carolina, and our board members thank Mr. Strange, who is here, who is the newly elected vice chair, who is from Pickens County, and Mr. Jim Warner is also here, Commissioner Warner, who's also our Finance Committee Chairman, Pickens County resident, and member of our board from Pickens County. They voted very recently to freeze tuition for this year. So we continue to be a great value for our communities. We are great stewards of our resources. We spend the most money on instruction and student support of any two-year college in the state of South Carolina. I think that says a lot about how we get that kind of student success. While responding to COVID-19, we continue to serve the residents of Pickens County in our service area. We are actually up in enrollment this summer, which is an anomaly, as you can imagine what you hear in the news related to college enrollments, and we're looking pretty good for the fall as well. And then very specific to Pickens County, I'm excited to let you know that we have very recently been able to serve as a polling location for 2 precincts in Pickens County. You may have heard that there were some issues with a couple of polling precincts. Senator Rice reached out to us, and we were able to quickly make a move to make our Easley campus a polling precinct or polling location for 2 precincts. So those are just some of the ways that we deliver value for individuals in this county. We presented a budget for you for the physical plant operations, capital renovations, and bond support. I think you noticed that physical plant operations are up as a result of increase in utility costs and also insurance rates. We had no change in our capital renovations request, and our bond support costs are actually lower this year. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about our budget request.
Thank you, Dr. Any questions?
You got a 4% increase on utilities. Have you got a 4% increase on your bills? Duke's not raising their rate 4%.
Our actual Duke Energy costs to the college, my documentation says that Duke Energy rates to us increased by 4% this past year.
They claim that they're not rate increase. I made a question for Emily.
Yeah.
Because we're told there's no increase. And you're telling me you've got a 4% increase expected this year?
We do.
And that's what they've told you?
Yes.
Is that Emily or?
That's what we budgeted for. Yes,
I know that's what you budgeted for, but that's what they told you.
Yes.
Not what I know what you budget for. I want to know what they told you.
Right.
They told you your costs are going up 4% for your power consumption.
Correct.
Okay. And your water and sewer, the same thing? I guess natural gas is part of that?
Yes, all of the utilities are bundled in with that. We've had a Duke Energy increase of 4%. Custodial costs are up about 15%, and as well as increase in armed security to ensure a safe environment for all of our locations. The other increase in that area is a result of insurance reserve fund costs As a state agency, we're not allowed to go to market for any better pricing, and we received a fairly significant increase in insurance reserve fund premiums that are going to be passed on to us this coming fiscal year.
Did they give you an explanation for that?
They did not give us a detailed explanation. What we did receive were the percentage rate increases for the insurance reserve fund. Cara Hamilton may be able to answer specific questions related to that, what those percent increases were.
So our professional liability is going to go up 18%, our tort liability is going to go up 45%, and our auto liability is going to go up 18%, and that is a written letter from IRF. And the tort liability is because of legal cases that have been brought to them. And as you know, insurance is a pool, and we're in that pool, and they spread that pool to the people that contribute to the plan.
And that's statewide, that's not just Tri-County.
How have your utilities been affected with the COVID-19 and not having as many students on campus? How's your power bill been then?
I'm not sure that we've had a full analysis of a power bill since we closed campuses in mid-March. We can get that to you if you'd like to see that. But we do plan to be, we actually are going to begin a reopen phase for campuses on June 19th. As you can imagine, our hands-on labs, clinicals, welding, computer numerical controls, we got a little backlog there. So we are reopening all of those facilities, so it would be fairly minimal.
Well, and I will say it is pretty significant that you're up in enrollment. When I've seen the research across the country with technical colleges and small town colleges, and they're down significantly. They're, matter of fact, a lot of them are faced with what do we cut, because they don't have the funding available because of the lack of students that are coming. I think that's going to be one of the big challenges going forward. So kudos to you guys for being able to continue that process. And I understand if you're going to be up in enrollment, you would anticipate there to be some increases there too, regardless of the COVID-19. What other questions do you gentlemen have?
I was just going to say that when I taught at Tri-County Tech, when the economy went bad, our enrollment went up. Mm-hmm. And so we never did worry about being an employee at Tri-County Tech in bad times, because we had more work than in good times sometimes.
That's very well said, Councilman. It's really odd. It's always in reverse. When the economy is going strong, people can get jobs. Enrollment typically goes down in two-year colleges. That hasn't been true as much at Tri-County as in other colleges, but when things get tough, students and the public tend to choose attending college, and that's what we're really hoping to see in the fall and the spring term coming, is a continued growth, because we did have growth this past year.
Any other questions? Doctor, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Next, we have Mr. Farley from Alliance Pickens.
Good evening. I think I'm here to address two items. One is the joint position, School District Pickens County and Pickens County.
You got to speak up, because
I think I'm here to address two issues, correct? One is the school district, our joint position, existing industry workforce development with School District Pickens County, right? One. Two, the annual Upstate Alliance dues request.
yeah.
Okay. I'd like, if may I, I gave to Madam Clerk information pertaining to the position of existing industry and workforce development manager, which is that joint position with the School District Pickens County. And I understand that there were some questions at the last budget session, and as you receive that, About 2 years ago, this council did something that was very unique in South Carolina in concert with the School District of Pickens County School Board. And that is, we all saw the need to meld existing industry with workforce development in a position. And then share that position jointly, the council and the school district. It made abundant sense, still makes abundant sense, to put those two functions together. As Tri-County Tech sits here, they live it every day. The confluence, the melding of workforce development with existing industry activity. And so if we hopped in a bus tomorrow, choose any 10 employers in our Pickens County area, probably 9 out of 10 of those employers are still, even with the pandemic, are still going to be talking about how it's at times difficult for them to find the employees, the skilled employees that they require. Sometimes they just need good employees who can just think on their feet, show up to work every day, do a good job. And that's how you all, with the school district, that's how the concept was born of melding that position and sharing the costs of it. I think the question was raised with regard to, golly Moses, I mean, what's the return on investment on that position? There's a number of ways that we can look at return on investment. Some of those ways are hard ways, and some of them are just soft ways. One of the easy ways is, gosh, what projects did that position uncover for the community? It certainly uncovered a big one in the KP components expansion. Yielded 46 high-skill, high-wage jobs in CNC robotics, and that'll be the start for that entity. They're under construction right now, a 50,000 square foot building in Easley. And the tax revenue generation of that project is going to generate somewhere around $2 million in a 20-year period. And you all, this body, was instrumental in approving the fee in lieu of property tax agreement that facilitated KP's investment. We truly are all in this together. If not but for conservative mindset that we work with and that we're born with in our community, if not but for one of the, if not the best countywide school district in the state of South Carolina, if not but for the best technical college in the state of South Carolina, an economic development office that you have seen to it is staffed and funded properly, and lastly, with the coordinated, cooperative spirit within which we all work, this stuff doesn't, these economic development projects don't happen. You made yourself the model for the rest of South Carolina to follow by the way that you coordinated with the school district on this one position that serves the roles in both the county and the school district. If we, during the last 30 days during the last day of, before the pandemic, normal school period, you would have seen the individual on our staff who resides in this position, who's this individual workforce development. You would have seen him dialoguing with probably 200, all totaled across the high schools, probably 250 young folk in the Alliance Pickens class to work initiative. We're not all going to go to pursue a 2-year degree at Tri-County Tech or a 4-year degree at Clemson or USC or Harvard or wherever. Some of us are not going to do that. Some of us just are not. But for those of us who don't, by golly, there are job opportunities available for us. We just need somebody talking in our ear, young man, there's an opportunity out here for you. You don't have to stay home. These companies are willing to hire you and put you in a career. They'll start paying for your two-year program at Tri-County Technical College. That is a role that this position is playing. Now, can we put an ROI on that right now? If I did, I'd be lying. I have no idea. But I know that I've seen it. I know that I've seen it. This position is working whether times are good or times are bad. We've had, as you all know, we've had 2 plant closures of memory. One was the flooring company. Help me out. Shaw, thank you. Shaw Flooring, sorry about that. Shaw Industries in Central. The other one was more recently Tyson Foods up near Dacusville. Didn't cut and run. We didn't cut and run. That staff member, that position, was there on premises hosting the job fairs and making sure that the laid off Pickens County folk got first crack, got first swing at the jobs that are available in our community. And boy, howdy, are there a lot of jobs available in our community. But you had a concerned, interested Pickens County staff member there leading the way, helping them, nurturing. And, Katie, bar the door, if you're 60 years old, you've lost a job. That's the only job you've ever known. What in the world am I going to do now? We wanted to make sure that there was help there for those folk, and this position did it. And lastly, trying to put some hands on that ROI, return on investment number. I surveyed the part of the marketplace, the existing industry marketplace that this position serves. Okay, Pickens County. So we surveyed 40 Pickens County employers, ranges in size from 400 to from 4 people to 500 people in size. And I asked them 4 questions. It was a 1-minute, I promised them it was a 1-minute survey. Question number 1, how satisfied are you with the information and assistance about available programs that you've received from this position? How happy are you with that information? 96% said they're happy. 61% of that are very happy. Question number 2, through the information or assistance provided by the position, has your company's revenue or profitability been positively impacted in any way? And I think that this is the most important question that we can ask them. How has this public position that's being shared by the school district and the county, has this position helped your profitability or revenue? Look, man, 1/3 of them said yes. It's positively impacted my revenue or my profitability. And then lastly, question number 4, do you feel that this position is a valuable resource to your company? Question number 3, and 81% yes. 81% said yes. And lastly, question number 4, it was their opportunity to play center field and answer however they wanted to answer. Are there any areas where this position could help your company or employees? And you have those answers on the last page there, and I'll just go through a couple of them. No, not at.
Can I?
Page 4 right there.
Not at this time, but we do foresee needing help in
you
the
don't have
future.
it? 1, 2,
Oh, back in the back of this one?
yeah, back of that one.
Okay, I see it.
There.
Continue to do the good work. This position has been very helpful to our organization. I think the biggest hurdle we face is to have more young talent in the programs that support us. That's exactly what Tri-County Tech, School District Pickens County, the Career Center, and my office are all about. Keep on doing what you're doing, et cetera, et cetera. Please keep doing what you're doing to make this community a better place for all of us.
You have a question?
Can I interject a little bit?
Yeah.
I think you've gone all the way around the field about 3 times.
Okay.
And I think what we were kind of looking at is so many positions that get brought on with government never get a follow-up to see are they doing what they're supposed to do. And what we're trying to figure out is this is a new position. What is this person doing? And is it being effective at what we're trying to accomplish? I think that's kind of what we're looking for over, and I'll make Mr. Bowers may have a little different view on it. I don't need a 3-hour lecture about all the stuff going on. I know all that. What I want to know is this position that we started, is it doing what we intended it to do? Is the person doing what we envisioned they're doing? Is there something we need to change on it? Is it getting the results that we want? And that's more of a question for you because you're seeing how things go. Does that
Councilman
make
Whitehurst,
sense?
yeah, it does, except I think all these things that he's talking about are specific to that position, not
Right, I
just
know.
what he's saying in
I
general.
know that was more what I was
Yeah.
looking for was that instead of just what they're doing and is it working, in your opinion, and what you deal with, and is it being effective so it feel like we're funding something that's doing what its purpose was? That's all we're asking. At least that's kind of what I was
Yeah,
asking.
yeah.
Got it. Mr.
I'm
White.
not looking for an ROI of certain percentage. I'm looking, is it doing what we intended?
Councilman Whitehurst, 100% yes, absolutely. I would venture to say it has exceeded expectations. The target audience for that position are the children and the existing industry folk.
Right.
And I think the medal is shown here by the existing industry folk. We watch those students come from, and Councilman Hendricks, you're fortunate, you get to watch this every day. And Galen DeHay, you get to watch this every day. But we have a staff member over there who is taking young minds who don't have any idea what they want to do, and he introduces them to stuff, and buddy, the lights go on, and they go, and it's really cool to see. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That position is 100% doing what you all had envisioned it to do.
I see 3 things that I think are positives on this handout you've given us. One is the job fair. This people get picked up and hired.
Yeah.
Straight out of high school. Satisfaction rate of these businesses, because I can tell you firsthand, working with students in public places, that if they don't like that student there and they don't want that student there, they're going to voice their opinion. No, we don't want them here. But that high satisfaction rate, 96%, that's strong. And the profitability on that, 32%. I think also something else, I think that we're still in our infancy somewhat, that the numbers, because of what Mr. Arnett does in turning these kids on to certain careers where they may have a little bit more further training needed, where they have that 2-year period to finish their associates, to get that particular training, then we'll start seeing more numbers coming back, that these people are coming back to Pickens County and working within these particular fields. I think that 2-year window is where we really see more numbers and more of what these other guys, some of these other guys are looking for with that. I think, based on my professional opinion as an educator and sitting in this seat as a council member, and the stats you give me, I think we're on the right path with that, in my opinion.
Well, I do want to make a point that this is not in any way an evaluation of an employee. This is a discussion on the effectiveness in what you've expressed as far as the this position being new and created and getting the return on investment as you've identified, and that was what Councilman Whitehurst was asking about. Any other questions?
No problem. I do want to say, Mr. Chairman, because I do think I was the one that brought this up, and I made it perfectly clear, it was a Zoom meeting, actually. I made it perfectly clear. I don't care about personalities. I don't care about the person. It's all about the position. We're at the 2-year mark. You have to evaluate. So
Absolutely.
if you're not evaluating what you're doing, then you're being wasteful in government, and I think we're all against that as much as we can be. And that's the reason for the evaluation. And I do think that, I'm afraid some of this has put some angst on you or your staff, and that was not the intent at all. But we do have to evaluate every position. That's we have to evaluate Mr. Roper and his staff.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
that's part of it. So, not individually as people, but as positions. And I want to make that clear. I don't want there to be any angst. We're not against anyone in your office. You know, personality may fit great, but if the position's not working because the businesses aren't engaging, then we need to think of a new way or a new position. And that's what the concern, before we go forward with funding, because we are at the 2-year mark, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Before we go, and that was what we said, 2 years was the original agreement, when we discussed it.
Right.
Wanted to make sure, okay, this becomes somewhat permanent now. Want to make sure that the position itself was working, the idea behind the position, not the person in the position.
And Councilman Bowers, we understand that loud and clear. It was never taken any other way.
Good.
I can assure you. Yeah.
Anything else before he moves on to the next? Okay, Mr. Polly.
This second information packet coming around is relevant to the Upstate Alliance discussion. The Upstate Alliance is the regional economic development marketing organization supporting the region that we reside in, okay? It is supporting a 10-county region, Pickens County being one of those. There are a number of regional economic development marketing organizations around the state. In fact, the entire state is covered covered by regional economic development organizations. These regional economic development organizations have become extensions, if you will, extensions of the South Carolina Department of Commerce, so that as the South Carolina Department of Commerce develops leads and prospects, those leads and prospects are filtered through what are called requests for information, RFIs, requests for information. Those are funneled down to the regional organizations, who then funnel them to the counties and the communities. And the Department of Commerce compensates the regional organizations to do that work. In the way of return on the annual $58,000 investment made by Pickens County, a big one that comes to mind to me is the research assistance that the Upstate Alliance avails to its community, to its member counties. Most particularly, the EMSI labor data, which is of A1 significance to all of us as we are looking at our labor force, juxtaposing our labor force against counties or communities or states that we are competing with on projects. MZ helps us to understand helps us to better understand our labor workforce, which conveys then over to our existing industry workforce development manager, helping to give a better understanding of how we can manage and what our strengths and weaknesses are, and so on and so forth. That is a big one. That's a $30,000 cost to offset that is paid by the Upstate Alliance that the counties nor ACOG need to pay for independently. as I mentioned, the Upstate Alliance its being is marketing. I think there was one point when the Upstate Alliance was initiated some 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago. I think it was conceived as strictly a lead generating entity, strictly lead generation. And I think about 6 or 8 years ago, that changed to getting away from strictly lead gen to more of a marketing and PR entity for the entirety of the 10-county area. It hosts prospects. It hosts consultant groups, site consultant groups to come in for visits of the 10-county area that we get to be a part of. It gets us face time with decision makers, with centers of influence, and so forth. And do those initial handshakes made at one of those events, does it generate a project? Nah, not there. But it's a relationship business. We get a chance to put our assets in front of a decision maker that we otherwise might not have been able to get in front of. This is a lot about developing relationships. And you know that, and I know Mr. Whitehurst, you know, because you've talked about it in the past. We've made a point to develop relationship, develop rapport, and develop respect within the site consultant community and centers of influence, so that when they have projects for which our assets meet their criteria, they think of us. And we've done well in those regards. The Upstate Alliance, simply gives us another appendage to enable that kind of work to happen. And lastly, as I indicated, Department of Commerce now is funneling its funneling its RFIs, project activity through the regional groups. So that's my synopsis. You also have in front of you the Upstate Alliance in their words, their data, to give you a feel and a sense for what they do. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions?
I would ask, is there one business that we have gotten that Upstate Alliance has brought into Pickens County? Did you know?
No.
The thing that, and I understand, the thing that really bothers me about the whole situation is it's almost like you have to belong or you're not going to be considered by the state. And this is the thing. I understand. It's one of those things, if you don't belong to it, when you may not get a company steered toward you. It seems to me like that. I may be wrong. Stop me if I'm wrong. But you may not get that company steered to you. Now, looking back on it, I can look at one company that, because they got steered toward us, and we're in the Upstate Alliance, that they got benefits from the state. I think, what was it, $400,000, something like that. So looking at it from that point of view, it's a good deal. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think the state should be in the business of, you need to be partners in this private-public partnership, or you know what, we may not look at you as favorably. And that's kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of how it hits me.
Let me turn it into a question. Because of our relationship, or because of our being a part of Upstate Alliance, does that open up more doors for our businesses that are coming here through the U.S., through the State Department of Commerce?
Can you say the question again?
Does our,
Should have been an attorney.
really? No. He just called me an attorney, that was really bad. Does our relationship with Upstate Alliance,
Right.
does that open doors through the South Carolina Department of Commerce for local businesses like U.S. Frozen Waffle to get additional funding where we don't have, the taxpayers don't have to do it? Like, there are incentives that we give for businesses to come here, and they can also get those state incentives. Does that help us, or does it even matter?
I don't think that matters.
So it doesn't matter at all that we're a part of the Upstate Alliance for them to get that additional funding?
As for, just so I'm clear, for companies to get incentive money.
Correct.
Yeah, no. Being in the Upstate Alliance does not cause.
Not say cause, does it open the doors? In other words, without our relationship,
They can go to the state directly.
can they, does that help? It doesn't matter?
It really doesn't matter because
It sounds like to me you're advocating this for us not to be a part of Upstate
Just
Alliance.
being honest with you.
No, I'm not advocating. I'm not advocating anything. I'm
Just being
you
honest.
asked me
Yeah.
questions. I'm going to give you honest answers.
Yeah.
But listen. But to answer that question, the Upstate Alliance does not get involved in managing projects.
Well, I know, I realize that.
That is where the coordination of the incentive packages would take place.
Okay,
I have 2, 3.
Good.
Real quick.
Oh,
First
we-
off, I agree with everything you said
Thank you.
about the state being involved in making you a mandate, and just like I think the DOT should fix their road, just like I think, no offense to Tri-County Tech, it's a state school, I think the state should fund the school, but they don't. And that's why we're in a lot of the positions we're in. Mr. Farley, does Upstate Alliance help you do your job?
Yes, sir.
In any way, shape, form, or fashion? You said they are not in the lead generation business, which is a common misconception. A lot of people think they throw you leads, and that's what their job is. And you said for the last 7, 8 years they haven't done that, right?
I said that that's used to be all they did.
But that's not their primary target anymore. Correct.
Correct.
Have we gotten anything out of our relationship with Upstate Alliance? Has it helped you in any way to do your job?
Yes, sir, it has.
Okay.
Yes, it has.
thank you.
Do I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want y'all to talk first because I'm always one that runs my mouth. So, and y'all know this. So.
Well, that's why we're trying to.
You know
make the
my
meetings-
feelings on this because I've been on this council when we were part of Upstate Alliance, when we weren't part of Upstate Alliance, and now we're back part of Upstate Alliance. And we pay the highest rate of any county to be part of that. They capped it off at it's a per capita rate, but they put the cap at our population. So we pay the same as Greenville or Spartanburg, who has many more people than we do. I know that's the way that works, which is a little bit of a grind with me. But if your budget, when we got out of Upstate Alliance, we had conversations just like you about this, and back then, which was many years ago, you felt like, in conversations with us, we felt like you could take that $50,000 or $58,000, whatever it was then, and better use it someplace else to bring in industry. And we were successful with that. We brought in several companies. If your budget right now said, you cut your budget by $58,000 or be a part of Upstate Alliance, which would you do?
Well, no, that's kind of a loaded question. You're asking,
Should be, if we give you back the 58,000.
Right, if in other words, you had the $58,000 to spend in your budget or to spend on that. That's probably not a fair question, but understanding the delay tells me what my question is. I know these guys are in support of it, but I've had struggles.
Not to interject, because I'm enjoying the conversation. interested in the outcome. But the reason he's hesitating is because the money is not actually in his budget.
I understand that, but if it were, that's my point. I know it's not part of his budget. It used to be part of his budget.
That's what he's worried about.
Yeah, it used to be part of your budget. And now it's.
I think what he's asking, he'd rather spend the 58 on upstate Alliance or something else, if you had a choice.
You might want to go for
Would
vacation.
you,
I know it's not fair.
yeah, would you rather have somebody else raise your children, or would you rather raise your children?
You'll take the benefit, but it really comes down to what's the opportunity cost someplace else for it.
The real question, Mr. Chairman, is do you want the tool in your toolbox or not?
Yes, sir, I do.
And knowing that you could have the money in your budget or the tool in your toolbox, you still choose the tool in your toolbox. That's ultimately, I believe, what Councilman Whitehurst
Oh,
said.
if we're still on that question,
I believe that.
your question was.
No, it's the same question, and I think that's what Councilman Whitehurst is trying to say.
All right, I'll cut to the chase, boys. And
That's what we want.
if it's either or, if the choice is have someone else raise your children or you raise your children yourself, I'll choose to raise my children.
I don't understand that analogy, Mr. Farley. I really don't.
If my choice is give
How
the
about this?
money to
If
somebody
you
else,
choose to send your kids
or
to
keep it
college
yourself?
or teach them yourself?
I'd say, just say, I'd rather have the money than be in the Upstate Alliance.
if under this scenario, shoot, yeah, I'd rather.
And it's not a
have the
fair
money.
scenario, I understand.
And we're being extremely unfair to you, and I know that as well.
And I'm gonna catch hell from all these guys for asking that question.
Well, not really. When
Okay, you want to talk.
when Mr. Loomis come up and talked and made the pitch to us, and he's the guy that represents Upstate Alliance, I'm gonna tell you, when he walked out of here, I was pretty disappointed. Because I didn't see, and he's pitching his own organization to this body, and I didn't see where he did a very good job of convincing me that we need to be a part of it.
I know that guy, and he's not the best salesman in the world.
Well, I believe if I
I'll
was,
tell you
if
that.
I was
Wow,
gonna
okay.
pitch out, I believe I'd sent the best salesman.
Well, yeah, I don't want to go down the road of bashing somebody that's not here.
Well, I'm not bashing, I'm just saying, you know.
What other questions do you have for Mr. Farley with regards to this being in the budget or not? Mr. Feemster?
Yeah, I have wrestled with this a lot, because when I got on council in 2015, Mr. Farley was wringing his hands because he said, I feel like a car dealer with no cars. He had all that land up there, and it had pine trees, and it was really hilly. And one of the reasons that the council didn't do anything about preparing the land was because there weren't any industry available to put on it. And I remember telling some of the council members that if I have to, I'll buy a scraper pan and start scraping it off myself and leveling it out. And finally, the council woke up and did some construction, and we got on the State Alliance, and we started having industry coming in.
Can I make
Councilman
a
Whitehurst?
comment to that? I was on the same council you're referring to.
Yeah.
We went through a very difficult time, as you know, with the economy. And in 2015, we voted to spend over $2 million, I think, to start leveling that out up there. Was it 2 million? It was somewhere in that range. And we did bring in 4 companies that year. Was it 4, 3 or 4? 4. But we were not part of Upstate Alliance at that time. You know, so we were successful in bringing industry in without Upstate Alliance. Now, that's not to say that's not a decision this council wants to make, but we were.
I
And
don't
we
think
did,
that was 2015.
right?
those
Yeah,
companies.
2015, yes, that's when we brought them in. All the deals were cut for the fee of lose. 2015, that was 3 that year, I remember. But I will, because I have felt strong about this, and I know this is just a vote situation, I'm gonna make a motion that we not renew with Upstate Alliance for this next year as a part of the budget.
We'll do
Can
that.
I do that at this point, or do I need to?
I think we would do that during the third reading.
Okay, then I'm gonna do that during the third reading. And I know, I know how the vote's gonna go, but
Well-
I've struggled with this before, because I've been on both sides, and it's nothing against you. But I've just not felt that we've gotten the support. I feel like we send money to Greenville to help them get industry. And that may be totally wrong, and it may be completely backwards, but that's just.
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chairman
I
Bell.
actually want to address what Councilman Whitehurst just said, because I've actually been thinking about this long and hard myself. That's the reason I asked Mr. Farley the hard questions, because I've been on the fence a little bit myself. There are business leaders that are very passionate about us being a member of Upstate Alliance. There are educators that are very passionate about us being members of Upstate Alliance. There are citizens that are residents that are very passionate about us being members of Upstate Alliance. There are residents that are very passionate about us not being members of Upstate Alliance. And when I look at that demographic, if you will, there are residents here that want more growth. They want Mr. Farley to do a ton more. They want him to have 10 industrial parks, and sky's the limit. And then there are groups of residents that really want us to be nothing more than a bedroom community. So how do you address the concerns and needs of all the residents? And that's where, I mean, the voters, that's what it comes down to, right? Trying to find the balance. Thinking about it, if you want to be a bedroom community, and this is going extreme, I realize, but if you want to be a bedroom community, you've got to work somewhere. So you do need Greenville and Anderson and Oconee to do good business and have good businesses. I don't agree with that concept at all, but there are people that actually think that way, which means they pay taxes here, they want jobs elsewhere because they want to live in a bedroom community. You have to still be a member of Upstate Alliance for that to even work.
Well, yeah, I understand your point.
Now, that's extreme, and I realize, but it's something that I have thought about, and I thought I would share purely because I don't know that we've all even had that conversation.
My, not me having the growth part, it's just return for what you're getting. That's kind of where I'm coming from. And,
Well, and you just made me think of this before, when we came on board, and this was one of the things that we talked about quite a bit. I did have one of the major businesses in Pickens County say, if you're not a part of this, we're moving. They were going to pick up and move out.
what I would love to see is some of the businesses kick in some of the cost. If they're receiving the benefits, you know, it used to be that was.
Well, they kind of are. They're paying taxes.
Well, I understand, but.
I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. They are, and we're just being good stewards of that tax dollar.
Yeah, most of them are paying
Well,
fees in lieu of
but it's
tax.
not in, it's not in lieu of, it's not zero tax. It's not zero tax, but they're still paying taxes at a substantial amount. He just talked about $2 million. Okay, any other discussion on this before we move on?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Farley, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks for the comic relief and looking at the deputy there. That made my day.
Thank you.
All right, the last item that we have listed under our budget discussion is the sheriff's office. Mr. Roper.
Not coming, and I know that Captain James is not here to take the incoming arrows on the sheriff's office questions. He's here
more
to
comic
provide
relief for him.
security.
That's good.
But I want to make sure that's clear. We did ask the sheriff to be here tonight. There was a community event going on that caused a great deal of concern here locally, and he has indicated to us today that he would be at that event instead of being here because he thought that that was more appropriate for him given the volatility of the circumstance. So he did, however, have his staff report prepare a written document which has been provided to you. I don't know that I'll be able to give anything more than general information on that, but I wanted to let you know when he came up here to tell us about that
like I
developing
saw it. No, I
situation,
lost it.
he provided you a written report as well.
It was here when we got here.
This one.
Okay.
It's red.
We've got it.
You got it, red and black with yellow.
Again, it sounds like a joke.
Specifically, I could say he's addressed the medical costs on the first page. He's also addressed the food costs on the next page and the utility costs, which I believe are your questions to him. And between Ralph and myself, we'll try to answer those as best we can.
Well, okay, so like, for example, one of the questions was on the food cost, why has it gone up substantially? His answer is, it's the food costs.
I'll try to answer that
But-
the best I can. What the deputy sheriff talked to me this morning about, if you look on page 2, they looked
Because of
at,
the inmate population number that changed?
pardon me?
Is it because of the
Yes.
inmate population number?
Yes, they're showing that their ADP is 292, whereas before it's been a lot lower than that. So their population cost has gone up, and they've done the math down there to show they're paying for that rate, it's about $1.50 per meal.
Is that because they've added in the people from the stockade?
Well, I don't know if it's,
Because they were part of the being paid, that was part of all together.
it's
So-
just your
hold
ADP
on.
has increased because they built a new jail. And we've heard this saying before, sometimes if you build it, they will come. And I think they're holding the inmates longer or not letting them out like they have in the
Oh,
past.
I'm getting fired up.
No, hold on, before you get fired up. Wait, so the number of people, the cost goes down based on the number of people.
Right.
So there are more people now that are a part of the detention, but we were feeding those people before.
I think your ADP was a lot less before we opened up the detention center. So as we've opened up the detention center, I think, and I'm not the legal person to talk about this, they're less inclined to let people out of jail like they were before when we were overcrowded.
What we did is we paid extra money last year's budget to hire on the additional staff so that the magistrate could move these people through the system faster. Isn't that what we had a whole big, long conversation about?
We did.
I'm referring,
I'm not yelling at you, but did we?
right, I'm referring to the food.
I
As
understand,
far as
but the
moving the
idea
process.
was not to have as many people in the jail. We said, we're building this jail, we don't want to fill it up as soon as it's opened. And we were assured by the magistrate's office that we were going to be moving these people through, and we paid extra, I thought we brought on an extra person to help the magistrates run through
That's
this.
solicitor's office.
The solicitor's office, I'm sorry, my fault. The solicitor's office, did we hire an extra person or a person and a
I think we
half?
hired an extra secretary, I believe.
And we were told this was going to move through the system.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman
if I may,
Bowden.
while on the food, because I do understand that, that's part of all this, but on the food, just while we're on the food, you obviously have seen the contract, reviewed the contract, signed the contract, paid the contract, that's what you do, right?
Technically, I haven't signed the contract. That would be between the sheriff and the administrator as far as doing that. But going through their numbers mathematically, that's what the
Seen
numbers.
contract? My question is did the price per meal go up?
I haven't seen the contract to be able to answer that question. I know it goes down as you have more.
And I don't have the contract with me. It's been a couple of years. It's been more than a couple of years now, I guess, since we negotiated this on food. But there is a rate that they publish, and that's the rate the contract commits us to pay. The specific language I'm not familiar with, but I know that in asking around this vendor, a lot of people use this vendor because they're kind of the only show in town. We've been frustrated by that. When you're the only show in town, a lot of time the rate can go up. But so I don't have the contract information with me tonight.
So the original question when we were discussing health and medical was why? So the true answer to why, if it's ADP, it's ADP, and it is what it is. But if it's a contractual change, then it's a contractual change, and that's what we need to look at. But if we
haven't executed a new contract with them in several years.
But what kind, in the contract itself, what kind of variances do they allow? Those are the questions we're asking.
I don't have that information.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've dealt directly with the sheriff on that.
The other thing I would ask is the civil liability on the medical and the food, has that lessened civil liability? Because supposedly, they're supposed to be civilly liable on the medication or the food. And so where are we at there? Did that help us any or what?
We may have an answer, hold on.
Ms. Snyder, who recognizes here with our, who's represented us in many of the lawsuits that involve the sheriff's office. She's here to give you a briefing in executive session tonight. And she was indicating to me that that's part of the briefing she would like to give you in executive session.
Okay, thank you.
So, part of our problem is obviously inmate population going up, which we were trying to solve last year and spent money to solve it. Yet, as the theory goes, if you build it, they will come. And here we are. Paying for more people to do less stuff. So, does the sheriff have ability to help move this? The solicitor?
The sheriff would have some discretion in terms of when and who to arrest. When
I'm
and
talking
who
about
to-
moving through the solicitor to
Right.
get these people
Well,
processed.
the input is a part of the input is a factor. The magistrates would then have part of the process in terms of determining what the appropriate bond is. So that's part of the process. The time it takes to get them to court is something that's more a function of the public defender's office, which I think is the position you're referring to. I might be remembering that
Right,
wrong.
it
But
is
the public
something-
defender and the solicitor's office, I think it was a public defender position we created to try to help speed that up.
But apparently we're being told that if crime's down 40%, why is the jail full?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last
If
part.
crime is down 40%, why is the jail full?
I don't know, you're asking questions that I can't answer.
Well,
I can
okay,
tell
now
you
you're getting
that
into-
Okay.
Amongst the options in front of this body would be to fund it without further questions, to fund it and ask that we put it out to the market. I believe those are the two main options that you have.
all we got right now.
And I don't really know what else to recommend to you. We're glad to comply.
Right.
I do want to follow up on a question we had during the budget work session, talking about the utilities for the prison camp. That is something, if council wants to make a motion, since we're done with the prison camp at the sheriff's department, that was an oversight on my part. We can move that out of the sheriff's department, any utility cost or any cost associated with the prison camp. We can move that to however the administrator sees fit, whether it's public works or building maintenance. And that will help out some on the utility costs. It won't reduce the budget. It'll just shift the cost.
Recommend
where it
Public
actually
Works,
needs to
that's the
be.
Public Works campus. That's
Okay.
the first.
Shows it where it needs to be.
Pardon me?
It would show the numbers where they
Correct.
actually need to be.
Correct.
Now, do we have any idea what the ADP was versus a year ago from these numbers? I don't remember. I know we used to hear them, but
I can give you an educated guess. I think it was in the low 200s, what I always heard.
That's what I thought.
Like 220 maybe.
okay.
I'd just say one thing.
Yes, sir.
Some of the problems on the jail numbers have to do with the state and having more judges with more court time and things like that. And that's something that needs to be addressed, because as of right now, and I may be wrong, but this was several years ago, average jury trials 2.5 days. You can have 24 jury trials a year, the way we roll. When you have 4,000 cases, those numbers don't work.
Right.
And what that does is put defense attorneys at an advantage, because what they do is they say, continue, 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 and then 6 months, 8 months down the road, after he's set in the detention center for 8 months, then he says, okay, I'll make a deal with you, Mr. Prosecutor. If you will give him time served, we'll plead guilty. And it's become a problem. It's not just in Pickens County, it's across the state. And we need more court time, we need more judges assigned. That general session, if it was done right, it should be running every week. Every week. And it's one time a month now. Okay, that's 4,000 cases a year, and that's when I was there 9 years ago. That's what it was. Those numbers doesn't work. It puts your prosecutors in a position that there's no win, because they have to negotiate. But meanwhile, they're sitting in our detention center. And that's the problem, and that can only be solved at the state level. Now, there's other things that you can do at our level, but that's one of the big log jams right now, is that we don't have enough judges to hold general sessions, court time. Same things goes on in magistrate courts, but it doesn't affect the detention center as much. But it's a problem that several years ago, Tim Morgan wrote a full-page article in the paper about that. The problem is still the same as it was then. Ran over.
There's another, I want to take this opportunity to advocate for this program in Pickens County, and Mr. Hendricks, who's been out in and amongst the defense bar here, can tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but in Greenville County, there's another adjudication option. You can go to drug court in Greenville County. Same prosecutors, same defense attorneys, just different county, and you can go to drug court, and they move a lot of cases through, and it's got a good record for recidivism. Your opportunity for drug court in Pickens County is, I think, Mr. Hendricks, 0.
Why is that?
It's the solicitor's office that have to set it up here.
So how do we make that happen?
I was hoping by standing up and saying that I might help a little bit.
Is it too late to make a motion for a resolution for?
There's a couple things that drew my attention out here. Our tort insurance
Yeah, I just saw that too.
and the property insurance, can we put those back out to bid? Is that
tort-
something in our control?
Well, on tort insurance, we've got some very good news, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We can put that out to bid. We've been working with our broker on that, and we need to update you about that here shortly. It's part of what we've got prepared for you tonight. But other than that, I would tell you that we've got some good news on that front for the immediate choice we need to make.
But property insurance, we could still go.
Same. We're talking about all those together.
Okay.
Any other questions you guys have on that?
I think Carl explained it.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Mr. Roper, there was one other item that is not necessarily, I mean, we're still under the discussion of budget, and we were talking about last time the
The medical control officer,
Yes.
you were looking for more flexibility so that when we bid that out again, we could build it out at the expansive, more modern.
And you were supposed to find out if that was
And I'll
possible.
tell you that Mr. Garino came up with with an alternative for you all. And he actually wrote it out for me because after my incident with the water tanks, or the sewage tanks, he said he wanted to write this out for me. Council, after reviewing our claims history with our broker regarding the lawsuits that come out of the LEC, we feel comfortable in reducing the liability insurance account at the sheriff's office by $25,000. With the potential reduction in future claims that we anticipate in the coming year, we could use the amount allocated for the deductible towards our EMS department for increase to the medical control officer budget. So basically what we would take away is one deductible, one $25,000 deductible on our liability at the jail. And we feel like that's reasonable given the fact that we're in the new facility now and the old facility is shut down. We think that's a reasonable thing to do, and that would give us the budget flexibility in order to more fully fund the medical control.
Of how much?
$25,000.
Okay. Any other discussions? Questions, comments, sarcastic remarks? Well, I was fully expecting you to give one of those.
Well, I was.
No, I'm kidding. Don't. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is item number 10. This is the, why does it say it this way? Okay. Third reading of ordinance 582 to provide for adoption of a budget amendment containing estimates of revenue and expenditure changes for Pickens County for the fiscal year. This is for this past year, July 1st, 2019, ending June 30th, 2020. You guys have got the information on the changes and that, for the ordinance 582 is, I ask for a motion in a second to constitute third reading. Motion by Councilman Feimster. Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Discussion on third reading of ordinance 582.
Can I make a motion on it?
We motioned.
Motion
and
to
we've said-
amend.
This is the past one.
I'm sorry, I'm ahead. No problem.
Yeah, you're
We're good.
jumping ahead.
I jumped ahead.
Any other discussion?
Sorry.
All those in favor of third reading of ordinance 582, please raise your hand. I didn't see you, Carl. Yes, okay, that motion carries. Item number 11. This is the third reading. Gosh, I can't get to that page. Third reading of ordinance 573 established, no, sorry. That jumped right ahead.
You're like me now.
Well, I'll just read it off of here. Third reading of ordinance 583 to provide for a levy of taxes in Pickens County for ordinary county purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021, and to direct expenditure thereof. I ask for a motion and a second first.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Whitehurst. Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Now discussion. This is where you want to do what
Mr.
you...
Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we move $25,000 from the Sheriff's Office liability fund to EMS Med Control.
There's a motion to move the $25,000 from Sheriff's Office to the Med Control. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Whitehurst. Discussion on that motion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. All right, that motion carries. I'd like to go, well, no, I want to hear.
Do the motion to move the utilities charges that were now under the budget.
Yes.
For the stockade, there's now under the budget of the sheriff to put back under building maintenance. Is that where it needs to go? Or
Public Works.
Public Works, because that's what's out there.
A motion to move the funding for the utility funding from the stockade to the Public Works. Good gracious. There's a second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. I want to know if I can, I want to go ahead and move on, make a motion to approve the sheriff's budget, but with the caveat of putting these things out for bid. You said we could do that, right? Did you say, or did you not say we could do that? Or do we just direct you to do it? We don't
You can
motion.
just direct me to do that.
Okay, then we'll direct you to do it. Never mind, no motion. I withdraw that motion. Okay. Councilman Whitehurst.
I'll make a motion that we do not fund Upstate Alliance this year as part of this budget.
Motion to not fund Upstate Alliance this year as part of the budget.
Second.
Second by Councilman Hudson. Any discussion? All those in favor of not funding Upstate Alliance as a part of this year's budget, please raise your hand. Opposed? Does not pass. Any other amendments to the budget?
I'm trying to recall, did we not have a discussion about something for like $22,000 we were trying to get added in?
That was the medical control.
That's all it is, was that there's no other, there was something with animals or something that we talked about? I'm just, and my memory may be foggy on it, I don't trust my
With
memory.
animal?
Do you remember that? We're good? Okay.
Oh.
I may be thinking something else with it. Something stuck in my head and I can't
And
think what it is.
fortunately, if something comes up over the course of the year, we can make another amendment. However, right now, this budget it shows a zero. Mr. Roper, am I correct? This is a zero tax increase?
That is correct.
Can I make a comment? I know I have to make another comment.
Yes, go ahead and make a
On
comment.
behalf of all the council, I think we thank.
Oh, that's a good comment. I was waiting for something.
Our administrator and Ralph, I know, and all your department heads, we asked a lot to try to keep this thing down because of the situation. And I know it's been a lot of work and you had to kind of change on the fly. And I know I speak for everyone, we appreciate all the hard work and the attentive to answering our questions and getting stuff back to us. And I know we appreciate that. So thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you very much. Thank you. And that's why he wins the award every year for all that stuff.
Good job, Ralph. Excellent. Appreciate it.
The
I see his
head bean
getting
counter
bigger
award.
and bigger.
And his head gets bigger and bigger. Like, yeah. All right, seeing no other questions, I'll go ahead and call for the vote on the third reading of our amendment for the budget. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries. Now we'll move on to item number 12. Hopefully I've got this one in front of me here. Okay, this is the third reading of our ordinance number 573, establishing a trust fund for indigent medical treatment in Pickens County pursuant to the provisions of the Medical Indigent Assistance Act to further define requirements and procedures for disbursements from the trust fund and matters related thereto. I ask for a motion in a second before we begin discussion. Motion by Vice Chairman Bowers, second by Councilman Hudson. I do know that this is not, we're not putting money into this, we're just creating the entity so that we can move forward with that.
That's
What
right.
else did you want to say?
Well, and Mr. Chairman, you're exactly on what I'd hoped to bring up. We had first and second readings some months back on ordinance 573. So in anticipation of tonight's meeting, we looked back at the ordinance and wanted to make sure we preserve that option to fund this at what time you may see fit. You remember that discussion at our last budget meeting? Y'all really thought it was important that you be able to move forward to this when you wanted to.
Yeah, and and based on Mr. Greeno, he's holding off on those payments so that we're able to.
So what I'm going to ask you to do, and this is actually reflected in the document that you have, if you'll look at your copy of ordinance 573 at section 2 of the very bottom of the first page,
You need to,
there's an underlined section there that I've added and/or by supplemental appropriation or appropriations.
So
The idea
the-
there is it gives you the flexibility to implement this when you decide.
so I make a motion to amend the ordinance number
you deem it
573
Yes.
to include the language and/or by supplemental appropriation or appropriations under section 2.
I think that more correctly reflects what y'all were discussing the other day in the budget work session.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any discussion on that?
Did we decide to take a certain amount to start funding this? We hadn't, how are we gonna go about starting to reallocate those?
So I understand from Mr. Guarino that these payments are made quarterly. The first payment, the first quarterly payment will be due during July. So what I would suggest to you is that we spend July, August, September fleshing out this program and how we want it to work before that second quarterly payment comes due. And then we can make a supplemental appropriation at that time.
It was kind of what, Mr. Chairman, kind of what I had envisioned, because you do want to, it is a trust, and the trust makes full decisions, and you have to make sure that it's all up and running and everyone understands how it works, and the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. By the same token, we can't get behind on our payments, so
Right.
I'd hate to, I think we'd be actually in violation of law if we parked a bunch of money there without a physical trust board to do anything with it. So I do think that realistically, you're not going to get it by first quarter, but second, third.
I just don't want, this is a lot of credit goes to Vice Chairman Bowers on picking up on. This is a fund that we have to pay to the state I'm not even sure where all the money, you probably know more about it, but essentially we got to give the state and then they feed it back to us, to our hospitals the way they want to. Some get it, some don't, appropriated amount. What this allows us to do is to put that money in our own fund, and then we can appropriate, or the county of Pickens can appropriate accordingly to, rather than have the state tell us where they want to put it, we get to pick where we want to put it. And we will be the first county in the state to do this, I believe.
That's our understanding. When I described it to the state officials, the director of the department, as a matter of fact, he wasn't aware of anyone that had ever done this before.
To grab back just a little power back from the state.
That's also the reason why we have to make sure.
We got to be very
Yes.
diligent.
All right.
There's a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. All right, the amendment passes. Is there any other discussion on the second reading? No. Third reading of ordinance 573. Good gracious. Any other discussion on the third reading? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries. I'm going to start checking them off like you're doing. On to item number 13.
Mr. Chairman, I would point out, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the next three were part of the Kickstart COVID incentive programs. I think it would be appropriate if you find them suitable for second reading tonight to also refer them to committee, because these have not been through the committee process.
Okay.
They're in rough non-committee form right now.
Okay, so, well, I'll start with the second reading of ordinance number 584 to amend Pickens County procurement ordinance for the purpose of increasing county's procurement policy from 3 to 5% to increase the preference for supporting local business. I ask for a motion and a second before we begin discussions or amendment.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chairman Bowers, second by Councilman Feimster.
I'll make a motion that we, following the vote, commit this ordinance.
To the consent, to committee of the whole.
Yeah.
Okay, second on amending this to, committing this to the, putting this to the committee of the whole. Ah, God, my language is leaving me now. All right, all those in, any discussion on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things about this I don't agree with, and I'm going to vote against it, but I'm happy to be open to talk about this in committee, just to be consistent with my original vote on it until I'm persuaded otherwise. But yeah, I definitely want to.
So you can vote for the amendment and not on the second.
I'll vote for the amendment to send, yeah, but not on the.
Well, you can vote however
It
you
won't
want.
matter because
you can
it's
vote
gonna go.
however you want to.
Yeah.
All right.
It won't make sense to do that.
All those in favor of the amendment, sending it to committee of the whole? All right, that carries. Now on the second reading of ordinance number 584. Any other discussion? All those voting in support of the second reading of ordinance number 584? Opposed? All right, and that takes us to our item number 14. This is second reading of ordinance number 586 to amend the Pickens County procurement ordinance for the purpose of allowing local Chamber of Commerce representatives to serve as an advisory group according to section 2-296. I ask for a motion and a second on the second reading.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Feimster, second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Discussion. I'll go ahead and make a motion to send this also to committee of the whole after the second reading. Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. All right, and any other discussion on the second reading? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. This is for ordinance 586. Opposed? All right, 5 and 1. All right, item number 14. I skipped it again. Wait, I just did 14. Didn't I?
587 is next.
Yeah.
15.
Yeah, I'm on 15, sorry.
15.
Hey, I'm with you. Second reading of an ordinance number 587 to create small business retention grant program. I ask for a motion and a second on the second reading of this ordinance 587 before discussion. Motion by Vice Chairman Bowers.
Second.
Second by Councilman Feimster. I do know this is, if I remember correctly, Mr. Roper, this is taking money that was collected and actually moving it back towards economic development.
Yes, this is money that was collected, realized through part of our delinquent tax process.
Delinquent tax, that's what it was.
And redirected to the Chambers of Commerce, provided they set up appropriate grants. So it'll need to be, for lack of a better word, workshop through the committee process to make sure it reflects your.
Right, so then I'll make a motion that we, after second reading, move this to committee of the whole. Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. That motion carries. Any other discussion on the second reading of ordinance 587 to create small business retention grant program? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed? 5 to 1 on that. Now, item number 16. This is first reading in title only of an ordinance number 588 to develop a jointly owned and operated industrial business park in conjunction with the Coney County such industrial business park to be geographically located in Oconee County and established pursuant to Section 4-1-170 of the Code of Laws of South Carolina, 1976, as amended, to provided for a written agreement with Oconee County to provide for expenses of the park, the percentage of revenue application, distribution of fees in lieu of ad valorem taxation, and other matters relating thereto. Ask for a motion and a second to constitute first reading of ordinance number 588. Motion by Councilman Hendricks. Second by Vice Chairman Bowers. This is that cooperation joint park where we get our 1%. Doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. Is there any discussion on this other than that? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries. And I'm going to need some help on the consent agenda for the things that we've added. On item number 17, I think I may have it here. On the consent agenda, we have the healthcare coverage options to the committee of the whole, but then we've also added
The additions that I have were emergency services overall review, sewer use ordinance, and procurement process.
And procurement process. Is there any, I need a motion and a second that we approve. Motion by Vice Chairman Bowers, second by Councilman Feemster. Any discussion on those items as listed for the consent agenda? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And that motion carries. Item number 18 is our executive session. It's been a while since we've been in executive session, and I appreciate everybody working so hard to keep those shorter and less frequent, but tonight it is important. We have in executive session personnel items, clerk to council review, acting administrator review, and for contractual, we have economic development update, litigation update. We also have an item that was added on Paul Partners contractual, and then boards and commissions, because we have to get these filled. There's assessment and appeals and accommodations tax. I need a motion and a second that we enter into the items listed above for executive session after a brief 5-minute recess. By Councilman Feemster, second by Councilman Hudson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And we are off to executive after a 5-minute recess. Thank you all very much. It's a lot of talking.
Are you bored yet?